If I saw this question on the old SAT, I would instantly know which strategy I'm going to use, and it does not change on this new SAT. This is absolutely an arithmetize question. Do not, under any circumstances, do algebra here, okay? Now, if you don't know what arithmetize is, because you're starting this whole process with the new SAT, I recommend going to my website, doing my lesson on avoiding algebra for the math section. Those strategies, I talk about them as if they're part of the old SAT. They 100% without exception are going to work here. So let me show you what arithmetize is. If we look at this question, these x's don't matter. We are never told to solve for x. It is a placeholder. Now we can do algebra and move this placeholder around, but algebra has a lot of rules about where things can go and what we can do, so it's very easy to mess up. But if it's a placeholder for a number, for any number, why don't we make it an easy number and see what happens? Why don't we pretend that x is 0 for a second? What happens? Well, now this becomes something easier, right? 4 over, well, 4 times 0 is 0, so 0 minus 5, this is just 4 over negative 5. Minus 1 over, well, 0 plus 1 would just be 1, right? 0 plus 1. So this is much easier to look at. And you should be able to do this in your head because it's just 1 over 1. It's a very easy kind of fraction. But we have the calculator. So if you need to do this in the calculator, it's pretty easy to do 4 over negative 5 minus 1. You're going to get negative 9/5. So obviously that's not an answer. But it's the answer we want. And so we made all the x's in the question into zeros. We better be consistent and make the x's in the choices equal to 0 as well. So let's just go down the line here. We got to try them all anyway. So this would be 9, and then 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 minus 5 would be negative 5. So there you go. That's negative 9/5 right there. The negative can move around the fraction. So that was pretty good. But let's keep going. Let's make sure. This one, let's change colors, would be 3 over 0 minus 6, so that's 3 over negative 6. That's negative a half. That's not negative 9/5, different number. And then here we've got 1 over 0 plus 1 is 1, negative 5, so that's negative 1/5, wrong number. And then finally we've got negative 1 over 1 times negative 5, so this is just positive 1/5. That is wrong, and there it is. It has to be A. How did we get from the thing we were given to this answer? I don't really know. As far as algebra goes, I don't know. I don't care. What I'm interested in is that they both produced the same number, even though it was a weird number. They both produced the same number when we put the same number in for x, right? If x was 0, we should get the same result because these are supposed to be equivalent things. So if we put in the same number, we should get the same number out. They're the same equation in theory. So that's what arithmetize is based on. This strategy was really helpful on the old SAT no calculator section. But even with a calculator, it's better to do this because then we can enter stuff into the calculator because we have numbers. You can't enter equations in very easily, but numbers, that's what a calculator is built for. Let it do its thing. You could have solved this with the calculator, but obviously we don't need to. But you could have done it by letting the fractions turn into decimals and you would have found the exact same answer. Arithmetize, I love that it's living a second life here on the new SAT.